Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. I recently posted a card of a sunset over water in which I used the Tim Holtz watercolor pencils. I got so many wonderful comments and likes that I decided to do a video tutorial for you. So here's the card that we are going to make today. We have done the sun setting in the Tim Holtz watercolor pencils. So let's take a look at the supplies that we're going to use. We will use, I'm just going to go ahead and use the Multifarious Smooth and Supreme. I have cut it to 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. The reason I've decided not to use a watercolor paper this time is because it's only the moon that we are going to be using water on, so I don't feel like we need to really use the watercolor paper. I like the smoothness of this. For our frame, we're just going to use a regular cardstock paper. This is about a 65-pound weight. It's pretty much what you would find in most craft stores. I've cut this piece to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. For our cardstock base, we're just going to use a black cardstock. I just took an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, cut it in half, and then that makes us have a 5.5 by 8.5 size that we then fold in half, and that will be our card base. For the stamps today, we are only going to be using a couple of stamps. We're going to use the Lavinia Tree of Courage. This one is LAV 657. And we were going to use the Cardio Wise Words collection. I'm going to use Enjoy Every Moment. For our stamping ink, we are going to use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. We'll be using the Distress Oxide Inks Black Soot and Hickory Smoke. For our watercolor pencils, I have actually purchased several of the sets of the Tim Holtz Distress watercolor pencils. From the sets that I purchased, I went ahead and bought all 3 sets because I like to have a wide variety of colors. So from the sets that I have purchased, I am going to be using the Barn Door, which is the red color, the Villainous Potion, which is the dark purple color, and then we will use the Black Soot. I will just be using a blending dauber to do the background, which is the Hickory Smoke and the Black Soot. I'll be using a 1/2 inch circle mask, and I have set that down somewhere, and I'm going to have to find that. But we will use that to create our sun with. We will also be using the white Sakura Jelly Roll pen. I'm actually using the number 10 size. You can use any size that you happen to have. I like this because it gives just a little bit thicker line. I'm also going to go ahead and use some water brushes, although I'm actually not going to be filling them with water because I want to have a little bit more control over how much water I use. So I have just filled up a nice little cup here. I thought this one was kind of pretty. It's just a lonely little punch cup. You filled it with water, and I'll be using that. Also, the Tree of Courage here is actually pretty open, but I decided I wanted this to look a little more solid. So I'm using actually a calligraphy pen, in which I will just color in on the tree. We'll be using an adhesive running tape to put our card together, or you can use the Ultra Bond adhesive. This is a clear drying glue that has a very nice fine tip. I use this quite often, so this is an option that we can use as well. You will also need to have a ruler, and then of course some water. So let's go ahead and get started on creating our card. So we will begin by taking our plain white cardstock. This is the multifarious. And we're just going to take our black soot pencil and we're going to go a little more than halfway up. And then just draw a line using the black soot pencil. This just kind of gives us our horizon line. Let me compare that and see if that's, I think I'm going to want that down just a little bit lower. And just kind of draw in a little bit of a horizon line there. Alright, so now we've got our horizon line. So we're going to go ahead and take our moon mask. This is the 1.5 inch circle. I like to put a little bit of tape on the back, that way it keeps it from shifting around when I'm actually doing the blending process. So I'm just going to place that about halfway over. Then we're going to get our Dauber and begin working on our background. The daubers that I have chosen to use are the dome topped foam daubers. The reason I like to use these is because they, to me, give the effect that I'm looking for, which is a little bit of a streaky across the surface texture. So these, I think, do a really good job with that. So what we'll start out doing is we're going to take our hickory smoke, and we're basically just going to swipe across, and we're going to do it above the line. And I'm just kind of dabbing and swishing across because I want to be able to see the texture of the swipes to give it more of that sky effect. I want some spaces to be a little lighter than others and a little darker. So let's see if you can kind of see where I've just got the little swipes. And that's all I'm really going to do, is just a few little swipes across to get the look of the sky. Then I will move on to the black soot and do the same thing, just in a few little randomy spots. I don't want to make it solid with the black soot. Again, I'm just trying to get some atmosphere to it. It's a little hard to see while I'm doing it, but you can kind of see that it kind of has a little bit of a cloudy day effect to it. Gives it a little bit of mood. So now we're just going to go ahead and remove our moon mask, and we're going to do the same process down at the bottom part for our water. So we will go back to our hickory smoke, and just do some swiping. Again, I'd like to be able to see that swipe effect on it to give it the look that we're looking for. Gives it some texture. It's really hard to see when you're doing on the video, but when we finish the project and take the picture, you'll be able to see it a lot better. All right. Now, do the exact same thing that we did above by adding a little bit of darker texture to it with the black soot. Leaving some areas lighter and some areas, making some areas darker. All right. All right, so now that's basically all we're going to do to the base of our card. I'm going to go ahead and clean up really quickly. Oops, knocked over my little water bottle. I just don't want this to get all over the bottom of my card or anything else while we're working on it. Okay, so now we are ready to go ahead and color in our sun. So the two colors that I'll be using are the Barn Door and the Villainous Potion. So I'm going to start out with my a little bit wider brush. I am basically going to take the brush and just dip it into my water. And then I will take my brush over my pencil. I'm going to go ahead and scoop my water out of the way so it won't be in the picture. Then I'm just going to start brushing it on, just to start getting a little bit of a base color. Now, I'm going to leave just a little bit of white on the edge so we can get a little bit of the shimmer of the moon. So I'm doing it very lightly. I have quite a bit of water and a little bit less of the color so that I can get my base started. So it's very, very light. And I don't know how much you'll be able to see. But then we're going to start adding layers on top. And then I'm just going to draw that out just a little bit so that gets a little bit less color as we move into the center part. Then I'm going to go ahead and get just a little bit more color over on this side. Wet my brush just a little bit so that I can thin it out. Alright, so now I have a little bit of a base down. So now I'm not going to dip it back into the water. I'm just going to dip it or touch it to my pencil so that I get darker color. Then I'm just going to play with it. See where I want it to go. Maybe do a little bit darker streak kind of lower and leave a little bit of a lighter one. Lighter edge closer to the top of the sun. And then come over to this side. Add just a little bit more color. So just play around with it until you kind of get what you the feel that you want it to be. I like to see the strokes, and I like to see the variation in the color. That gives you a lot more of your texture. Now you'd have two options. You can kind of let it dry a little bit on its own, or you can go ahead and start adding a little bit of your purple color to let it blend in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just quickly give a quick across. Not much at all. I'm doing that just so that it's not quite as liquidy. Now, I want to go ahead and move to my a little bit pointier brush because I'm going to be doing a little smaller areas. So now I'm going to take my Villainous Potion, if I can figure out what I did with my Villainous Potion. There it is. Pencil. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to wet the tip in the water just a little bit, stroke it across to pick up some color. And then I'm just going to start adding it lightly, letting it blend in a little bit with the red below. Then I will go over to the other side. I'm going to add a little water. So you'll just add water, let it dry out a little bit for darker colors. If you want the color to be lighter, then you add more water to it. The nice thing with these pencils is that they will blend really nicely to create the color and the look that you want. So as I pick up more color, it will start getting darker. And literally here what you're doing is just playing. Playing until you get it to the color and the look that you like. Now I want to get a little bit deeper color. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this just a little bit, so that I don't get quite so much blending and I can get a little bit more of the deeper color to start getting my darker shadows. I have to wet my brush, but I'm going to kind of dry it off just a little bit. And see, you can see there now I'm getting some darker colors, because I don't have quite as much water on my brush. I like to be able to see the strokes because it kind of gives a little texture to the sun. And then again, to just blend it some, I can just add a little bit of water. And one thing that you will find is that obviously with watercolors, you're never going to get exactly the same effect and the exact same picture. So as far as trying to exactly duplicate something, that's not going to happen with a watercolor technique. Alright, and what I really would like to have is a lot of dark color right down here at the horizon. So I'm just going to kind of draw a little bit darker. Another technique that you can do if you'd like to is that you can dip your actual crayon into your water and use that. You can kind of color in if you want to get some darker effects in there. If it looks too pencil-like, then just take your wet brush and just smooth it a little bit and blend it together some. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of more of the red, so I'm going to really clean off my brush, wipe it off, and then get some more water on it and get a little bit more red, just to add some more red color right in here. Maybe a little bit more across the top there. So that we get some of the brightness of the red. All right. Okay, so now that we've kind of finished what we wanted to do with our actual sun, we can do the reflection. I'm going to add just a little bit more red. All right. So now that we're ready to start doing our reflection down in the bottom, what we're going to want to do is do strokes across. Let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead and use the more pointy of the brushes. So I'm just going to take color and just stroke it. And I want it to get lighter as it goes, because as the further away it goes, the lighter your reflection is going to be in the water. So again, just keep touching it onto my pencil. And then, as you can see, I'm not adding a whole lot more dark color down toward the bottom. I'm leaving the darker color at the top and allowing the lighter color to be what's at the bottom, where it fades out. Alright, not quite round enough, so let me go back up here. And just round it out just a little bit. And you can have little streaks that go out on the sides, just a little bit, as your water is fluid. All right, so now we'll go ahead and do the same thing with a little bit of the villainous potion. Cleaned off my brush, although it probably won't matter quite as much. Clean off because we're using the same colors, and it doesn't matter if they blend. So just try to get streaks straight across. And same thing, just let it get lighter as you go down to the bottom of the reflection. Okay. And now we've got our reflection. So now let's go ahead and stamp our tree, and go ahead and start working on finalizing the finishing touches for it. So what we're going to do is take our stamping pad platform, and we're going to place our card on the stamping platform. I'm going to make sure I've got everything out of the way here. And then we will begin the process of stamping. So I'm going to take my tree, and I've got a sticky background that helps keep my card down. I am going to go ahead and grab just a little bit of scrap paper here and just put it at the edges so that I don't get any overlap onto my sticky grid. Alright, so now I'm going to scoot that up a little bit for you here, place my tree so that it goes over the moon. Get it exactly where I'd like it. Close the door on my platform. And now I will take my VersaFine Clair and ink up my stamp. Close that down and apply some pressure. Make sure that we get a nice, even, smooth impression. All right, that looks nice. Alright, I'm going to clean up just a little bit there on my stamp because I don't like to put it back with all the ink all over it, and it just helps to preserve it and get some of the ink smudges off. Okay, so we've got that down. I'm going to go ahead and remove that and put the platform aside for the moment. Now, you can keep your tree this way if you like, but for this particular scene, I wanted to go ahead and have it be solid. So I just got a little calligraphy pen, and I just am going to go in and color my tree in so that it's solid. So as you can see, that's what I'm going to do. Now I figure you probably don't want to sit here and watch me color it in, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera and then finish coloring it in, and then we will come back and continue on. Okay, so now I have got the black colored in. Like I said, I really like the look of the solid tree for this particular picture. I think it suits the mood the right way. Let's see. I've got a little smudge right here. So I'm actually going to take my Dauber and see if I can't smooth that out just a little bit. That's what happens when you get ink on your fingers, so I'm going to go ahead and clean them off to make sure we don't get any more smudges. Alright, so now let's go ahead and add some water reflection lines to our picture here. And all we're going to do is just kind of fill in just some white lines to make it look like we've got some reflections on the water. And then we're just going to put in a few highlights on our tree as well. So I'm just going to kind of follow the shape of the tree, not necessarily all the way to the edge, just enough to kind of give a little bit of a highlight there. I'm going to scribble a little bit over here just to get it darker in a few spaces, get it started up again. And then I'm going to add just a few kind of randomly in. Some of them will fade in, which is fine because then it gives you several different layers and colorings and shadings. Alright, that just gives it just a little bit more texture. Alright, and now we are ready to go ahead and put in our sentiment stamp. So for doing that, I'm going to go ahead and take my stamping platform again. And then I'm going to use the Enjoy Every Moment stamp. And we'll just place that down there. Get it positioned where we want it. Make sure it's straight. Ink up our stamp. again with our VersaFine Clair Nocturne. All right. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I like to put just a little bit of edging around. I like it to, it's kind of like a mood thing to me, and it also frames in your work. So let's take a dauber, and we're just going to just kind of do a little bit of darker ink right around the edges. It just kind of gives it a little bit of a frame, and it also gives it a little bit of a distressed and kind of a moody look. That I really like. All right. I'm actually going to, that got a little dark right there. Just going to take my hickory smoke and blend that out just a little bit. It's not quite as dark. And then we have our card ready to be mounted. So I'm going to go ahead again and clean up my surface here so that we don't get it all over our cardstock. So we'll just take a little bit of water and wipe up our surface and then put our card together. And again, I'll wipe my fingers off just to make sure. So we're going to mount our card, final project, onto a frame. So for time's sake, I'll go ahead and use the running tape, but again, you can always use the Ultra Bond. It works great as well. Dries nice and clear. I don't normally put as much tape in the center of it, but when I've used water, it helps to get some of the bumps out of it. You know how your paper kind of folds up a little bit when you use water on it, so that just helps me to make sure that I get it nice and flat on my frame. So there we go, we have it on our frame. And then we're going to mount it on to our cardstock. That's a little hard for me to see, so I'm going to grab a little color here so that I can get a little contrast, so I'll be able to line it up evenly. So I'll do the same thing with my running tape. And there we go. We have our finished project. So this one doesn't take a whole lot of time. Probably what actually takes the longest is your watercoloring, just to get it to the point where you like it the best. So I think that you will probably enjoy doing this. Thanks so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope that it does give you an idea of how you can use the watercolor pencils. They're a really fun medium to use. You don't have to do anything elaborate to get a really stunning finished project. Remember to check out the bellosdesigns.com website for more tutorials on the design team page. Have a great day.